Hi, welcome to the DBS Institute YouTube channel. I'm DC Breaks, and in this video I'm going to be exploring how I can use my voice to create a riddim or trench style bass using kilohertz phase plant. So let's dive in. So one of the things I like to do when I'm designing these kinds of bass sounds is to bring in my voice and use that to create a custom wavetable. So I'm just going to go ahead and record myself saying something, and then we can use that to design a custom wavetable for phase plant. Okay. Let's think of a good phrase or word to use. Gonzo. Okay, some of you may know that as a blue Muppet character. So let's see, it's a good idea to add in a little bit of tidying up at this point before you get into phase plant. It just makes things a bit tidier, so kind of leveling out gains here. I also find removing a little bit of the low end from the sound can prevent a few kind of problems as well. So let's just bounce that off. Let's call that Gonzo. And then I can export that and chuck that straight into my user wavetables folder. Call it Gonzo. There we go. And then we can get rid of that, and start working phase plant. So before we do anything, what I would recommend doing is setting up an LFO to scroll through the frames of our table. So generally you want to use a ramp up like so. We're going to create a wavetable, and we're going to want to scroll through all of the frames of our table at the same tempo as our grid at 140. Not that fast, maybe 816, something like that. Okay, so now let's load in our custom wavetable. So we just go to File, Create from Sample, find our new sample, here it is. And then if we hit play, in fact, what we need to do is just create a note here for us to play. Just move some of this stuff out of the way. You'll find that the note detection isn't great, so you'll probably want to retune this.
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
And you can just kind of tidy it up a little bit, remove the end and the tail.
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
So doing that, you can just kind of fine tune it and kind of preview what it's doing. So by setting up the LFO and a note, you can kind of do that as you're loading in the wavetable. So as you can probably see, it's not very well defined. So I tend to whack in a bit of distortion at this point just to kind of fatten everything up. Just don't need that group there. It's just going to help beef things up a bit.
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
And now really it's about manipulating this and adding lots of different effects and modulations. So the first thing I would tend to do is to try and create a sort of even more robotic version of this wavetable by using an analog generator, typically a sine wave, and then using that to modulate the shift or the phase. That can create some kind of interesting results.
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
I don't need an output for this, so get rid of that. It's giving me a nasty sine tone.
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
And I also find by modulating or self-modulating this, we can create some more interesting tonalities as well. So
Gonzo, 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 Gonzo.
that'll do for now, just to kind of make it a bit more harmonically rich, because when we start applying effects, all of that kind of sort of little detail is going to be brought out. So let's go ahead and do that. There's a huge amount of choice within the sort of snap-in environment within phase plant. We could add in formant filters, frequency shifters, resonators. A good one to use is comb filters, actually. So what I'd look to do here is just to kind of sweep through using the same LFO through the frequency spectrum using a comb. Let's see how that sounds. And we can duplicate this as well and have kind of the comb starting at different points and kind of sweeping through different amounts and maybe change the polarity. That can create some cool textures too. We can also try different combinations, so maybe like a resonator as well. Probably have to pitch this way down to get a good kind of grittiness to it. And again, using our same LFO to maybe add in a bit of movement to this resonator. Something like that. What else can we add in here? Let me see. Possibly like some ring modulation as well. So just picking one or two parameters and using the same LFO to just get a little bit of movement started within the sound. Let's just keep going, adding some more stuff, maybe a formant filter. So we can use this to kind of work through the different formant sounds in both the X and the Y axis. And this can create some really cool sort of vocally type of bass sounds as well. And so once we've kind of quickly had a go at doing that, at this point, you know, probably think it doesn't sound too great, but it will, I promise you. So we're going to now add in a bit of sort of processing to kind of get this chunkier. And Multipass has some great presets for doing that. So for example, if we go to the browser and come to Dynamics, there's this knot, which is kind of like an NO, sort of not the OTT, but it's basically just a copy of the OTT. This is great for adding upwards compression and shaping the tone. And then perhaps a hard clipper at the end as well. Just to kind of give us a ceiling to kind of push it to. Things can get a little bit loud at this point. Okay, so that's kind of like the workflow, and I've just worked through that very quickly to kind of just get a sort of tone. And from this point, I then look to kind of refine it and sort of just explore textures that are kind of pleasing. So I think possibly like the kind of phase modulation wasn't quite, or could be a little better. So let's just play around with that a little bit, and then I'll show you kind of how this sound kind of comes together. So. Okay, I really like that. That's adding like a really cool texture to it. And so, yeah, I might just whack some unison actually onto this just to kind of get it a bit wider with some spread and a bit kind of fatter sounding. Let's try synthetic unison. So where this now all comes together is that we've so far just been using this basic LFO just to run through and to create some movement. And now we can kind of come in and edit this, and it makes a huge difference to the whole sound because it's going to be changing all of the things we set up. So it's going to be changing how quickly it plays through the different frames, all this sort of effects modulation that we've done as well. And it does it all cohesively because it's going to be changing everything in the same way. So let's have a listen and have some fun and discover some really cool, weird textures and grooves. And so just playing around with that, then you can hear the sonic possibilities of creating loads of different bass edits and versions of this type of sound. And that was all really like working through this all very quickly. We can go through and refine this and kind of change it and tweak it up exactly how we like it. But it's a really great workflow and it's a lot of fun, and you can very quickly come up with some really great textured sounds for putting into this kind of music. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe to get more great videos like this delivered straight to your inbox, and I'll see you in the next one.